What's up, Santo Domingo? Or as we say, the Cuban-American way, que bola, Santo Domingo. So I'm really excited to be here with all of you here today. I'm going to talk to you about the future of social media. My name is Carlos Gil. I am joining all of you from the Sunshine State known as California. I keep getting asked this question while I'm here if I've been to Dominican Republic before, and I previously visited Punta Cana, but everyone says that Santo Domingo is the best place in the DR. So thank you so much to FOA for having me out here today. And before I get started, I just want to say, if anyone wants to teach me how to dance some bachata, I'll be around all day long. So I just want to get that out of the way. So before I just jump right into it, I want to encourage those of you that are on Snapchat to add me at @TheCarlosGil. In my bio, I'm sure you guys heard, I'm an award-winning Snapchat storyteller. I'm also on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, so be sure to go ahead and connect with me. Now, I've worked in social media for about 10 years, and I've seen social media evolve throughout this period. I've worked with some really cool brands like Winn-Dixie and Save-A-Lot. Spent some time working at LinkedIn. I currently work at BMC Software, where I lead social media. And before I talk to all of you about the future of social media, let's talk a little bit about the past and what's gotten us to this point. One of the things I've learned throughout my career and throughout this journey is that social media evolution is inevitable. Inevitable. What I mean by this is that the platforms and the people are continuously evolving. And as marketers, as business operators, as professionals, it's up to you to evolve with the people and with the technology and with the platforms themselves. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a history lesson before we jump into the now and where this is headed. Who in the room remembers AOL from back in the day? AOL is what I like to refer to as the godfather of social media. I remember being in my early teens using AOL in the early to mid-90s, and then we evolved as people. The community that was on AOL migrated over to MySpace. From MySpace, we migrated over to Facebook and Twitter. And today, this is where we're at. It's Snapchat, it's Instagram. Now, if we're gonna talk about the future, we have to talk about the players that are involved in the future of social media. And the first is a gentleman that I'm sure a lot of you recognize. It's Mark Zuckerberg, who you see here on the screen. Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook are trying to change the way that we communicate, and it's evident. Facebook is the largest social network in the world. There's over 2 billion users on this platform. The second player is Evan Spiegel, founder of Snapchat. While Facebook is trying to change the way that we communicate, Snapchat essentially is changing the way that we see the world through spectacles, also the way that we see the world through augmented reality and the different lenses and features. And it's important to point this out because I hear this happen all the time where marketers get into debates around what platforms to be on and is one better than the other. And you guys are going to hear me say this more than once today. All these channels that we talk about, whether it's Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, these are all tools. These are tools to connect you with people. Because without people, there is no social media. You know, we get wrapped up in campaigns and metrics and ROI and analytics. But at the end of the day, us in this room, we are people also using these platforms. And I think the way marketing has evolved over the last 10 years is, you know, brands think that being on social media is just a silver bullet to reach all these people en masse and make all this money. But the reality is if you're not using these tools to build a community one by one, then you are missing the greatest opportunity that exists. Now, let's break down some of these stats for you. Behind me, you see a breakdown of social networks, and you see at the very top, it's no surprise, Facebook owns the market share on social media. They have over 2 billion users globally. Facebook also owns WhatsApp. They own Messenger. Messenger and WhatsApp are the 2 greatest social networks to exist right now that no one's talking about. These are social networks in themselves that have over 1 billion users. And the reason why they've taken off is because people today don't want to be marketed and sold to So they've been able to escape brands essentially and go over to these messaging apps. And then you see this breakdown. You see Twitter, you see Snapchat, you see Instagram. Which leads me to this point, which is social media audiences, my friends, are fragmented. What I mean by this is there's no loyalty anymore between a user and a social network. Heck, there's no loyalty anymore between a user and the brands that they follow. Behind me, you see what the internet looks like in 60 seconds to prove my point. Today, we have more options than ever before. This isn't like the AOL days where there was AOL and a couple of other social networks or wannabe social networks. This isn't the MySpace days. Nowadays, you have not only social media, but you have Netflix on your phone, you have Tinder, you have YouTube, you have apps. So where I'm going with all this, and what this is leading up to, is if you want to captivate people's attention on these channels that we know as social media, you have to do something different to stand out. Now, I'm going to ask you guys this question, and please be very, very honest with me. This morning, when you woke up and you grabbed your iPhone or your Android and you went on Facebook, who in this room went ahead and saw what their favorite brand was posting before you ever hit up any one of your friends? Raise your hand. Not a single person in this auditorium. Not one person. Actually, someone in the front is saying that they raised their hand. What brand was it? All right, we'll get back to you afterward. But one person out of an auditorium of almost 1,000 people woke up this morning and saw what their favorite all-time brand posted on social media. Which means this, folks, this is your audience on Facebook. This is the reality. We have spent time and money and resources, and trust me, because I've built social networks from the ground up for companies like Winn-Dixie. We have spent so much time over the last decade building up Facebook as a platform, but the reality is that you get less than 1% organic reach by the content that you post on there. I'm going to give you guys an example. Since we're talking about the future, my good friend Brian Solis was up here a short while ago talking about experience. And we hear about chatbots, and here at this conference today, you're going to hear from other speakers about chatbots. And let me share with you guys an example of a chatbot that I recently interacted with. Marriott, we all know, is one of the largest hotel brands around the world. Recently, I went ahead and I traveled to Copenhagen, Denmark. And I wanted to go ahead and give it a whirl, so I went onto Messenger, and I reached out to Marriott, and I was looking for a hotel. And as you can see, the experience here behind me is I'm typing, I'm asking this bot where I can find a Marriott hotel in Copenhagen. As you keep seeing here on the screen, it's starting to get a little frustrating because every single time that I respond to this chat bot, immediately within seconds, I'm met with an automated response, a very templated automated response. As you can see here, I'm now entering my dates. Think about all these steps. Think about how much more time it's taking for me to go from this chatbot to, I could have probably booked my room already in 30 seconds or less by going on Marriott's website. So I let the chatbot know that I'm going to be in Copenhagen for business. I say again that I want to go to Copenhagen, and the chatbot is ignoring that I'm looking for a hotel in Copenhagen, and it keeps saying New York City. How do you think, as a customer, I feel? How do you think yourself, as a consumer, you feel if this is the experience that you're getting through a chatbot? And as you can see here, I said Denmark. Ultimately, there's no hotels in Denmark, according to this chatbot. Now, as we keep moving forward with experience, this is ultimately what I was met with. 2 days later, after I was already in Denmark, true story now, 2 days later after I was already in Denmark, and I'm staying on Airbnb, Marriott decides to reach out to me because someone somewhere in their community management team probably said like, oh crap, we didn't acknowledge this guy, and he ended up staying somewhere else. Completely different experience you find at Apple. If you didn't know better, you would think that these folks that you see sitting outside are probably homeless, but they're not. They're camping out to wait for the new iPhone 8 outside of an Apple store. For the experience of them walking out with a product. This is what every one of your brands should really strive for on social media. Not just to go ahead and have the best products, the best goods, the best services, but also focus on building that community So this is the reaction that your consumers or your customers get anytime that they interact with you. Which leads me to my next point. I'm going to spend a lot of time now talking about storytelling. Storytelling, my friends, it's not really a phenomenon. Think about this. Since the time that we were born, we've been told stories from our moms, dads, abuelitas, abuelos, you name it. So storytelling is not new. What is new is the concept of brand storytelling from the standpoint of putting the brand aside, bringing in a human being, and let that human being tell the narrative for you. Because let's face it, think about time that you ran a campaign and you got very low engagement. I just did this exercise yesterday when I was doing a masterclass for FOA, where I went to 3 of the top brands in the world. I went to Walmart, Nike, and Coca-Cola's Facebook page, and guess what? Very little to any engagement on those pages. I want to say Walmart had somewhere in the neighborhood of about 120 million likes, and on their latest post, they had like 150 likes. But guess what? If you put someone like my man Sean Duras, who you see here on the screen, and starts doing a really cool Snapchat or Instagram story that now Walmart shares on their page, guess what happens? People now will start to go ahead and actually engage, comment, share. You'll get all those metrics that brands are craving for, because we as people want to hear from other people. We as people trust other people. Creators themselves, we call them influencers. Guess what? Every single person in this auditorium is influential. Everyone. Everyone has reach. You have various degrees, but everyone's an influencer. So I'd rather not refer to people as an influencer because they're verified online or because they have all these followers. Instead, consider them creators. Consider your employees at your company's creators. Consider your customers of your brand creators. I tell you, one of the biggest missed opportunities on social media today is the opportunity to listen. We invest in tools like Hootsuite and Sprinkler and Spreadfast, you name it. But what brands are actually taking the time to listen to see who's speaking about them and then building curated lists based on who those advocates are, based on who those customers are, and then marketing directly to them, because they're the ones obviously that want the content, not the 99 other percent that aren't even seeing it. So think right now, when you leave here today, your social media strategy should really be to work with your agency or your in-house marketing team to really identify who are the creators that can tell your brand story for you from their perspective. Who can tell the narrative for you? Now, this is a gentleman that I really respect and admire. His name is Casey Neistat. Casey is a YouTuber. He's a videographer. When Casey puts a video on YouTube, he gets over 1 million views within a 24-hour period. Once again, I went ahead and did this research yesterday, and I started looking at some of the top brands in the entire planet. None of them are getting the views or the reach that someone like Casey Neistat's getting. Then we look at Gary Vee. I'm sure a lot of us here in this auditorium know who Gary is, being that he's a thought leader in the business community. I like to refer to Gary as the godfather of social media. People today rather ask Gary Vee a question through hashtag AskGaryVee on Twitter or on Instagram than go read a book or go on Wikipedia. Why? Because Gary's real. Gary's a brand, but he's real. He's someone that you can actually engage with and have a conversation. Not a bot, not some logo, but a real person. So I think you guys now hopefully get that storytelling is this new medium, and you need to become storytellers. But what challenges that brands have today is the platforms. Where should I post content? How often should I post? I hear this debate almost every single day because those that follow me and those that are connected to me in the business community know that Snapchat has a soft space in my heart. And let me give you guys some context. I joined Snapchat in 2013. I'm gonna tell you guys a very quick story. I was running social media at Winn-Dixie, and I started hearing about Snapchat all the time. I started thinking through, how is someone who today is a teenager or someone in college going to engage with my brand 5 to 6 years from now, having this understanding that social media is constantly evolving with the people. So I'll never forget this. It's November 2013. It's actually Thanksgiving Day, and I post a picture on Facebook, and my then 13-year-old sister-in-law looks at me and says, "Carlos, why are you posting on Facebook, Facebook is for old people. That in itself was the moment in time that forever changed my career. And I thank her for it because I probably wouldn't be standing on this stage today had I not evangelized Snapchat when it was a 2-year-old social network at that point. So what did I do? I joined Snapchat from a research and development standpoint. I started engaging with maybe about 5 friends. The first year I was on Snapchat, it was like the same 5 people over and over that I would go ahead and engage with, and we DM and send each other photos and videos and whatnot. And then stories rolled out, and what did I start doing? I started doing what I was already doing on YouTube, which is video blogging, known as vlogging, and I started using my cell phone to tell a story throughout the day of what I was doing. The highs and lows of my life for 2 years were documented on Snapchat. Getting let go from jobs, getting a new job, moving to San Francisco, experiencing new things, getting haircuts every Saturday, everywhere I travel, documenting this story is what led me to get here on this stage to speak to all of you, because I got it, and I wanted other people to get it too. So I hear from marketers, and I've heard this already in the short time I've been here in Santo Domingo, no one's on Snapchat. Well, guess what? There's almost 170 million daily active users on Snapchat, and I highly encourage any one of you in this room, whether it's Snapchat or Instagram or Periscope or whatever the medium is, as marketers, as business operators, as professionals, it's your responsibility and obligation to at least join these social networks from a research and development standpoint, to really fully understand, when you hear people like me and Mari Smith and Brian Solis, how these platforms really actually work in real life. So let's go back to this debate. It's Snapchat versus Instagram. No, it's not. No, it's not. The only thing that you need to be thinking about right now and moving forward is, what social networks can I reach my audience on? And I'll tell you this, chances are your audience lives on both. Chances are your audience doesn't live on just Instagram or just Snapchat. So I often will say to friends and fellow marketers and folks like yourselves, don't focus on the platforms, focus on the people. Social media 101 is this: have a presence where your customers are. Build your strategy with your customer in mind. Where are they engaging? What content do they want to see? Give them more of it, and have conversations with them. Because the key word in social media is social. You have to socialize. So where I'm going with this in a very long-winded way is, if your customers are on both, develop a strategy for both. And I'm going to help you guys do just that. But first, let's talk about why Snapchat. Because once again, I feel that we all get Instagram. We all get that Instagram has value. It's easier to use. You can hook it up to your Facebook business page. We get all that. But oftentimes what's lost in all of this is that Snapchat has a very unique and distinct audience and community. First thing is first, just like Instagram stories. Stories disappear on Snapchat. In a rolling 24-hour period, what you post today will go away at this time tomorrow on Snapchat. That's how it works. Now, you might be sitting there and thinking, we're investing at our company or at our agency all this money to create content, and we want that content to live around and stick around forever. Well, guess what? Social media operates in real time. So if something is relevant and trending right now, I can guarantee you in an hour from now, it's old news. You're really as good as your last tweet. You're as good as your last story. You're as good as your last post. Let that sink in and register for a moment. So with Snapchat, you have an opportunity to create short, engaging stories that go away and disappear. So if you think about it, Snapchat is the reality show of your company. For you as a personal brand, it's your own reality show. The key, though, is to keep people coming back. And you look at these stats on the screen, and you see that the average Snapchat user checks Snapchat 18 times per day. 18 times per day. Look, I carry my iPhone with me everywhere I go. I'm not checking Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter 18 times a day. I can tell you that for a fact. You look at the breakdown, the audience on here, 166 million daily active users. The average user is spending 30 minutes on average consuming content. So what's that say to all of you in this room? If you have a presence on Snapchat, if you're creating content that's engaging and you're keeping your audience coming back for more, this is going to be almost like the TV show for your business or your brand. Which leads me to my next point, which is Snapchat is essentially replacing the TV. And let me break this down for you guys. For those of you that are on Snapchat, and by a very quick show of hands, who in this room is on Snapchat? Almost, I'd say about half of you, okay. For those of you that are on Snapchat, you know that there's a Discover section. And when you go in the Discover section, what do you see? You see traditional news media networks. You see CNN, you see ESPN, you see on there, various forms of content, which we used to go from consuming 30 minutes of content on a network like ESPN to now you can consume 3 minutes of ESPN SportsCenter and get the same amount of content in drastically less the amount of time. Now, when you look at the breakdown of the audience of Snapchat, because there's this misconception that Snapchat's just for kids. And the reality is that over 77% of Snapchat users are above the age of 18. I like to compare Snapchat to where Facebook was about 10 to 12 years ago when you needed to have an email address from a college university in order to join Facebook. That was Facebook back in the day. And look where Facebook's at now. My mom and dad are on there. Abuelitas are on there. It's really become a more mature social network. And that's okay. There's a place for that in this entire ecosystem. But if you have a brand that's trying to engage millennials, ages 18 to 34, or Generation Z, you absolutely have to be on Snapchat. There's no questions about it. Now, I've looked at the different demographic data, and Snapchat's predominantly used in the US as well as Latin and South America, whereas Instagram has a very high population and usage rate in Europe. Just wanted to point that out there. Now, for those of you that are still skeptical, Snapchat is in fact a legit marketing channel. I'm going to share with you guys a very quick case study from Gatorade. Does everyone here know the brand Gatorade? So Gatorade, every single year, buys a Super Bowl commercial. It's about a $5 million investment for a 30-second TV commercial. This year, as well as last year for the Super Bowl, Gatorade ran what's known as a sponsored lens, which is a form of advertising on Snapchat. With this form of advertising, you can take a Gatorade bucket, like the one that you see on the screen behind me, and you can essentially dump it over your head. It was a really cool, fun experience to play around with. Well, what happened? More people ended up seeing Gatorade branding, 165 million people to be exact, ended up seeing Gatorade branding on Snapchat in a 24-hour period, which is more than the number of people who saw the Super Bowl itself. So let me break that down for you. More people saw Gatorade on Snapchat on probably the one day of the year where the entire world comes together to watch TV, which is the Super Bowl. More people saw Gatorade on Snapchat than the number of people who saw the Super Bowl itself on traditional TV. However, my friends, I really want to emphasize this point to you. Snapchat is not another social network to sell. And the reason why it's not another social network to sell is because of this. Because of the audience, because of the people. Remember I said before when I first started, social media is about the people. Without people, there's no social media. It doesn't exist. You just have brands talking to each other. At the end of the day, who runs social media for brands? It's people, which proves my point. So if you know that there's a younger audience on Snapchat, which there is, and they're using rainbow vomit filters to communicate with their friends, guess what you need to do? You need to communicate right back with rainbow vomit filters. That doesn't scare you yet. I don't know what will. But that's the reality. That's the real talk of using Snapchat. You're speaking to a much younger audience. You're speaking to millennials, and the reality is that millennials, my friends, don't want to be sold to. Millennials want to be engaged. I don't know a single millennial, in fact, I don't know a single person that can honestly say that they intentionally go on Facebook to see a sponsored post. I don't know a single person that goes on social media looking forward to seeing a B-roll video ad from a brand. The reality is that most people are using social media, whether you're a millennial or a baby boomer or a Gen X or Gen Z, most people are using social media for one purpose, and that's to socialize. That's to talk to their homies, talk to their friends. It's not to be sold to by brands. So with that being said, your challenge becomes, how do I become less like a brand and actually be more human? Now, before you get there, when you map out your strategy, part of your strategy is, how do I grow? I've heard one of the biggest challenges that brands and marketers face on Snapchat and also even on Instagram is how to grow your social media presence there. And let me go ahead and drop some fuego on you guys with how to make that happen. The first step is leveraging your existing social media channels. So by now, chances are you have a presence on Twitter, you have a presence on Facebook, you have an email list, you have a website. That's great. Leverage those resources in order to promote content that you have, whether it's on Instagram or on Snapchat stories. Leverage these channels. If you guys do a story on, let's say, Instagram or on Snapchat, go over on Twitter like you see Warby Parker doing the example behind me. Actually tell your community. Again, social media is all about community. It's all one big community. Just because someone follows you on Twitter doesn't mean that your relationship with that person's limited to just being on Twitter. You essentially want them to go to your website. You want them to opt in. You want them to buy from you. You want them to consume your content on an omni-channel level. So follow these examples of Wendy's and of Warby Parker. Cross-promote. That way you can tap into your following on these other channels. The next thing that you want to do is you want to work with influencers. Who in this room has done an influencer campaign at your brand? A few of you. You want to work with influencers because influencers bring two distinct qualities to you. One, that's reach. Influencers have the ability to drive their followers over from their accounts to yours. The second thing is storytelling skills. If you give an iPhone to the average marketer, the average business owner, and say, create an Instagram story for me, or create a Snapchat story, or just create content, they're not going to know what to do instinctively. Influencers, on the other hand, creators, as I like to refer to them once again, they're used to working with brands. This is what they do. They've built their audiences from the ground up. Everyone starts at zero. And they've been able to scale up through the content that they create and the community that they've built. The second thing that you want to do is use geofilters. What I love about geofilters, and geofilters are exclusive to Snapchat, they are branded advertising on Snapchat. So when you go to a location and you're swiping through and seeing like the different filters, if there's a business that has a geofilter running, you're going to go ahead and see that. What I really like about it is that you don't have to have a presence on Snapchat and create all this content to still reach Snapchat users. Once again, you don't have to have a Snapchat account in order to reach Snapchat users. So if you're sitting there thinking you're really hesitant about getting your brand on Snapchat because it's going to involve outsourcing to an agency and creating all this content, your answer is geofilters. It's using geofilters to place them strategically in places where there's a high density or high population of people. Think about concerts, think about festivals, think about sporting events. Anywhere where there's a lot of people getting together is really where you want to put your geofilters. Then there's good old-fashioned Facebook and Instagram ads. So I ran this test earlier this year where I spent $50 on a Facebook and Instagram ad that got me over 1,000 new followers on Snapchat. And the way I was able to do that is by running hyper-targeted ads. I ran ads that were targeting people that like Snapchat's Facebook page. I was targeting people that like BuzzFeed, people that read Mashable, people that have an iOS device, either an iPhone or an iPad. So run targeted media. Don't just throw money out there to see what sticks. Actually, run targeted ads promoting your new Snapchat account or your Instagram account. The last tactic for growth is location-based advertising. So a lot of you in this room probably have a brick-and-mortar business. Actually leverage that business like you see here in the examples behind me to have call to actions. Like us on Facebook, add us on Snapchat, add us on Instagram. Really leverage the fact that there's people walking into your business each and every day. So we've talked about growth. We've got growth strategies out of the way. Now let's talk about content. Because growing is a challenge, not just on Snapchat, but virtually every platform. The next challenge is content. What does that mean? How do you create it? How often do you post? Content is what people see. Content is what people react to. Think about yourselves as consumers. What makes you want to consume a brand's content? I heard yesterday that if it feels like an ad, if it feels like you're being sold or pitched to, most people keep swiping. They keep scrolling. I heard that when brands or when people post something that feels very real, very natural, from the heart, it makes them want to engage. It makes them want to take an action and like. My 3 guiding principles for creating effective content is right here on the screen. Be fun, be creative, and be educational. 3 things. If you can be all 3, you're going to win all day long. Let's break this down, though. Most brands are not fun brands, but the culture at your brand can be fun. So if you have a fun office environment, let's say you're an agency, okay, you can spotlight that corporate culture within your company. Creativity. What's going to get people to keep coming back every single day or as often as you post content is going to be what creativity are you using in the content that you're posting out there. If you're just posting sales offers, guess what? People aren't going to be compelled to come back because they're going to think every single time I see this brand post, all they're trying to do is hit me up over the head with an offer, and they're trying to sell me something. The third is education. Most people instinctively go on social media to learn something. You look at a platform like YouTube, which is the world's second most searched website online, behind Google, which happens to own YouTube. And YouTube is a resource for what I just spoke about. One, to be educated. You can go on YouTube and you can virtually learn anything. B, to be entertained. So think about your brands and think about the goods, products, and services that you sell, and start thinking as you're storytelling, what you're really doing, it's product storytelling. It's telling the narrative around what value those products use and how people can use them. That's the education piece. The next is creating original content. This is a big one here, guys. I see this happen almost every single day where people and brands are making this critical mistake where they're posting content on Snapchat, they're saving that content from Snapchat, and then they're posting it over on Instagram. When you do that, that's the digital equivalent of giving your neighbors leftovers from your company potluck at work. You just don't do it. So what you want to do is you want to create a new, fresh experience on each one of these platforms. You don't want to just save content and repurpose it. You don't want to just chop it up. You actually need to have a strategy for Snapchat and Instagram. And they can serve different purposes. I actually break this down in a couple slides. But what you want to do is you want to use Snapchat as a medium that's exclusive for, let's say, behind-the-scenes storytelling. And then you want to use Instagram more for a medium that's the finished production. Use it to actually document. But keep your stories short. Storytelling on social media today should not be more than 2 to 3 minutes worth of content. If you're passing the 3-minute mark, it's too long. In fact, the average person on Facebook only consumes 3 seconds of a video. So when you start your content, you need to have a very strong beginning, you need to have a compelling and engaging middle, and you have a very strong call to action or close at the end. So what I mean by this is when you're creating story content, from that first snap, from that first post, literally jump through the phone and excite people. So my recommendation when you're creating your story content is to actually have a storyboard. Actually sit down and map out what that story is going to look like from beginning, middle to end. Keeping in mind that a snap is as long as 10 seconds and as short as 1, and a snap on Instagram is as long as 15 seconds and as short as 1. Really look to use storytelling on Snapchat and Instagram to go behind the scenes of your business. Think about this. Historically, the content that people are seeing on your Twitter, the content that they're seeing on Facebook is very static. It feels like it's advertising in a digital medium on social. Storytelling should not feel that way at all. So take your audience behind the scenes of your business. What makes your business great? Is it your employees? Is it your product? Is it your services? What makes it great? And tell that story. Show your company culture. I'm a big fan of using social media for employer branding and really showing the experience of what it's like to work for a company. I'll use this as a very quick example. Cisco IT Systems uses Snapchat for employee advocacy. They actually give their employees, like you see here in this example, the opportunity to run their Snapchat account and actually show what a day in the life of working at Cisco is like. Now let's talk about expanding your reach for those of you that are big proponents of Instagram. As you're posting content, you need to focus on how am I going to get this content distributed outward, and if I don't have a lot of followers, how am I going to do that? Because oftentimes what I find with marketers is they call defeat before they ever really get started, and what I mean by that is they say, I'd love to be on Instagram, I'd love to be on Snapchat, but no one's going to follow us. Well, there's actually ways that you can go ahead and, I don't want to call it game the system, but you can actually growth hack Instagram by doing things like using hashtags. You can put up to 30 hashtags on a post. You can put a hashtag in your stories content now. Using locations, and the key to hashtags is not to use the most popular ones, but actually use the ones that are going to keep your content in the feed on that first page for as long as possible. Once again, use locations to expand your reach. So as you're posting content at your place of business, as you're posting content here in Santo Domingo, as you're here at this conference today, make sure that in every single one of your posts you add the location. 2 things are happening here. One, once you add that content to that location, it's there forever. So anyone that goes to that location looks for content that's been posted from there, they're going to see it. They're going to see the account behind it. 2, with stories at least, Instagram on the back end is curating stories. So if I see probably right now the location of where we're at on Instagram, I can see content on Instagram stories that Instagram has put there. So very important that you're not just using hashtags, but you're also using locations in your content. The other aspect I want to run by you guys is live video. Instagram Live. Instagram recently rolled out a live video component where you can do Instagram Live stories. Here's why I like Instagram Live stories as opposed to Facebook Live, which I'm going to get to in a moment. If you look at the news feed now on Instagram specifically, you see the little circles at the top, and that's for stories. The stories feed is the new news feed. And when you look at stories, if someone has live streams, so if they've gone Instagram Live stories, you see a little highlight around their name that says live, and the algorithm now keeps those stories at the very top, the very front, I should say. So your first 1, 2, or 3 people that you follow, typically, if they've gone live, any one of your followers have gone live, or people that follow you, I'm sorry, you'll see their stories at the front, if they went on Instagram stories live. So my recommendation to you is, as you're creating this live story, this real-time story that's progressing throughout the day, is maybe do a live video. It can be 30 seconds. It can literally be as simple as going live and saying, hey, it's a great day at blank business. This is what we're doing. Make sure that you stay tuned all day for our story. Boom. Now you're able to make sure that anytime someone that follows you goes on their Instagram, your account is going to be one of the first accounts that's shown. Let's talk about live video for a moment, because I've talked a lot about storytelling. Storytelling exists on live video, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm not a big Facebook Live fan because I see poorly produced Facebook Lives of people just hanging out in their houses. And I don't want to see that when I go on Facebook. What I want to see is I want to see brands like Starbucks, Martha Stewart, Sephora, actually putting time into using professional camera equipment like the ones here in this room, actually use professional equipment to create a great experience. Again, Brian Solis talked about experience today. Social media, just because it's free, doesn't mean that you should forget about the experience that people are having on social. It's your brand at the end of the day. So do you want them to have this experience that's poor because it's poorly produced? Or do you want them to have a good experience with your brand? So where I'm going with this is make sure that if you're using Facebook Lives, you're giving people a good experience through the quality of the content. 2, you're actually scheduling this content out. One of the things that I think a lot of marketers and brands drop the ball on with live stream is they just go live at the spur of the moment. No one knows about this. And then you get this notification, it's like, if I'm busy, I don't know to go watch your content. I can't. So you can do things like schedule a Facebook Live 7 days in advance. You can promote that Facebook Live, once again, cross-promote it on your other social media channels. Multi-channel awareness, my friends, is the name of the game. I get often asked, Carlos, how do I balance it all? I'm sure some of you in this audience are probably thinking the same thing right now. How am I going to go ahead and balance this? So let me break down this formula for you. At least this is the formula that I follow. 1, use Snapchat for behind-the-scenes content. So something that feels raw and organic and special. Like, for example, right before I came on stage, I was Snapchatting behind the stage, behind the scenes. Next, if you go on my Instagram, you'll see a static image of me here at this conference. So people on Snapchat get like the behind-the-scenes view. They go over to Instagram. They get the much more polished view. And then you use Facebook Live to create. So the live story experience, the live video experience. Most likely at some point here today, I'll do a Facebook Live. So now my community has seen 3 different types of content. They've seen behind-the-scenes. They're seeing on-location content through Facebook Live. And they're seeing gallery photos on Instagram. They're seeing more of like the curated narration. Once again, friends, this is your audience that you're speaking to. Social media is dominated by millennials, and if you're going to penetrate and reach this audience, you need to speak to them on the mediums in which they're engaging and the way they're engaging. So before I wrap up, let's talk about conversion. Because let's face it, we're all in business for a reason. So if you don't walk out of here at the end of this conference and go back to your offices and take 1 or 2 things that you can implement into your business that are going to help you make money, then guess what? My job as a speaker, I failed you. So I want to help you guys actually turn what I'm teaching you with growth tactics and content tactics and really believing in storytelling. I really want to help you guys figure out how to monetize this. And here's how you start. 1, paid media. Most of your brands, if not all of your brands, most likely are using some sort of paid media, Facebook ads. Snapchat just rolled out an ads platform, which you see behind me. Instagram ads, LinkedIn ads, Twitter ads, you name it. It's pay to play. That's the reality, guys. It's a pay to play game. However, if you're going to throw money out at these social networks for ads, make sure that your ads are targeted. Make sure that you're taking your CRM data, for example, and you're taking that CRM data and you're uploading it into Snapchat, you're uploading it into Facebook. Make sure you have retargeting pixels on your website. So anytime someone visits your website and then goes over to Facebook, they're seeing a Facebook ad from your company. That's how you work smarter, not harder. So that's one. Two, custom snap codes. So if you're a brand that's sitting out there and thinks, you know what, Snapchat's not for us because we don't have the resources on our team, guess what? I shared with you how you can use Geofilters to still have a presence on Snapchat. You can also create what's called a custom snap code. The way a custom snap code works is you create a code, like you see Pepsi put on their bottles, that links to something. You can literally create a snap code that links to your website. You can create a snap code that links to your mobile app. You can create a snap code that links to virtually anything online, even a YouTube video. So think about creating these custom snap codes that you can place at your place of business. Think about these custom snap codes that you can even put on your website. So now you can growth hack and tap in to that Snapchat audience without necessarily having a presence on Snapchat. Next is inserting links into snaps. It goes without saying that if you want people to convert, you have to give them a call to action, which is why I always recommend that at the very end of your story, where it's on Instagram or on Snapchat, you have a very strong call to action. That call to action can be visit our website for more information. It can be come check us out tomorrow. With Instagram, you need to have 10,000 followers, unfortunately, do the swipe up feature and get people to go to your website. With Snapchat, it doesn't matter how many followers you have, you can insert links into snaps. Now, the key is having tracking URLs. I use Bitly as a free service to be able to create tracking URLs. I then put those tracking URLs in my content. So any single time I do a campaign, any single time I do a story and people visit my website as a result, I'm able to then go back to my CMO and say, hey, we did X activity on Snapchat, and we had X number of visitors go to our website as a result. The next is using coupon codes in the same way that you use a tracking URL. So run short 24-hour flash sales. Run offers through your social media content. Because you know this content disappears in a 24-hour period, make it a very exclusive offer that you have to buy today or within the next 24 hours in order to redeem. But just like I mentioned with tracking URLs, make sure that you have specific coupon codes that are also trackable. That way, if you create a story and you sell 100 products that day, you can see that 25 of them came from Snapchat, and you know that Snapchat works. My last piece of advice to you guys is to have fun, because Snapchat is not Facebook. I know I've talked a lot about Snapchat. Over the next 5 years, Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook are going to be the three predominant players in our industry. So I'm telling you guys this now, do not disregard the power that Snapchat has. Don't read the headlines when it comes to things like, Wall Street and their opinion on Snapchat, because the reality is that it's the people that dictate Snapchat. And while we talk about having fun, I'm going to show you an example of someone that has a lot of fun on social media. Who in this room knows who this is behind me? Who is it? DJ Khaled. Keys to success, right? So first of all, guys, I'm originally from South Florida, and I'm a big hip-hop fan. So I'm a big DJ Khaled fan by nature. I like incorporating DJ Khaled into my presentations for a reason. DJ Khaled, who's a Miami-based hip-hop artist and rapper, is one of the most viewed people on social media today. DJ Khaled has more people viewing his content than the Kardashians do. Let that sink in for a moment. DJ Khaled has over 3 million views per snap. DJ Khaled gets over 6 million views per post on Instagram stories. And you guys want to know how DJ Khaled has seen this success on social media? DJ Khaled is real. DJ Khaled is not a brand that's just trying to sell you something. DJ Khaled is a real human being that wakes up, has a heart, has culture, has a pulse, he eats, he goes to sleep, and he wakes up, and he does it all over again the next day. So my challenge to all of you out there is to be more like DJ Khaled and be less like a brand. What I mean by this statement is what you've been doing in social media to this point, it might work, it might not, but I can tell you where the future of social media is headed is where it's always been. which is all about the people. Thank you so much for your time, guys.